Okay, hey, welcome to an episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today I have a really cool prototype preview for you guys from the brand Nivari. They are a new German-made micro brand, and their name comes from Niva, Japanese for garden, and Vari, Latin for diversity or color. So that makes sense, especially with this special dial combination. Now, a little bit about them. They're a small, passionate team proudly based in Germany on a mission to produce the finest timepiece for the money possible with quality on par with mainstream Swiss luxury brands. Yes, not luxury like, not luxury-esque, flat out luxury levels of execution, and I have to say they nailed it. This has some beautiful hand finishing, and the fact that it is made in Germany really helps as well for tariffs, which is nice. So in terms of type of watch, I consider this an everyday watch. Some key characteristics and design language, you're looking for something you can wear every day. Of course, you want to just find that versatile blend of both sporty and dressy attributes. This is from their Eden Collection, and it is the Sakura prototype. And it's essentially their premier elevated everyday sports watch platform with a special signature Sakura dial and a soft pink pastel, which really captures the fleeting beauty of cherry blossoms in full bloom. The fine textures gently catch the light, revealing shifting patterns of depth and shadow like petals moving in the wind. These are eventually going to cost just under $1,500 at $1,449. Now, that will be a future price point, but currently you can still get these for as low as $945 through pre-order pricing on Kickstarter. Now, it is available, and some of the spots, depending on when you watch this, may already be taken, but of course you are going to save money. The only thing with that is you will be waiting. These are not scheduled to be delivered until Q1 of next year, so that first quarter, which actually will sneak up on you, especially considering that the holidays are right around the corner. But with all that said, let's go ahead and zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. Okay, big shout out to Nivari for lending this prototype in. Especially considering that these aren't out yet. I have to say I'm blown away by the prototype, and just from experience, I know the prototype is always going to be a little bit more rough around the edges than the actual production models. And I have to say, the fact that they were able to get production samples for these prototypes executed to this level is really impressive. I mean, look at the beveling there. Super smooth. Great transitions. Nice hairline brushing. This absolutely, in terms of build quality, is right up there when you start thinking some of the nicer Longines watches, when you start thinking Tudor, start thinking Omega, and of course there's even a splash of Grand Seiko in there. So this is very, very impressive, and I know it doesn't have the name on the dial that's going to make it feel expensive, but I will say, for those of you that are, true connoisseurs of that very high level of fit and finish, look at the handset there, guys. The bevels, the multi-finish facets, it is just special. So from that perspective, guys, let's get into the dimensions. 39.5 millimeters. I know they say that's 40. I will say it's about 40. The higher you kind of go up, or I should say like the lower you come onto the lugs, you can see there's a bit of a kind of a bulge there. But if you measure it closer to here across, it's going to be closer to 39.5 versus here. It starts feeling more like 40, just to give you a heads up. And then in terms of the thickness, guys, I measured 10 millimeters on the dot. So quite impressive, and that's including the crystal. 44.8 millimeters lug to lug, very manageable, very short. Although you do have a male end link, it is very highly executed, and you can see it doesn't add that much ultimately because of the drape on that solid end link there. Now, The crystal is a sapphire, and it is flat with multiple layers of AR coating, and that comes in handy when it comes to being able to view a gorgeous dial like this. The viewing angles are going to be key, and the nice thing is you're going to have a very, very clear window into this dial. Now, you do have this fixed bezel, which is brushed with a high polished bevel, as you guys can see there, nice and sharp, matching bevels. You see a bevel there, bevel here, very, very cleanly executed. You have a screw down crown, which also is nicely finished and signed. And then you have this cool engraved case back, so it does help with keeping the thinness really at bay there. And the movement inside is going to be an automatic Sellita SW200. And do I think it would have been nice to have an SW300? Of course, it would be nice. But I will say the 200, in terms of keeping the price manageable, I think it makes sense. You're only going to get that 38-hour power reserve, but you're still going to get the 4 hertz sweep there, so 28,800 vibrations per hour in terms of the beat rate. Now, getting into these dial details, guys, check it out. This texture dial is just gorgeous. It has nicely applied indices. You have the date at 3 o'clock. It's nicely framed. It would be nice if maybe they would consider a color match, but I see since they framed the date, maybe they want to keep that a little bit more contrasting. Now, getting into the hands again, guys, brushed hands with polished bevels, just multifaceted and really highly executed. You're going to get BGW9 Swiss Super Luminova as well. You're also going to get 100 meters of water resistance with that screw down crown, so that's going to be very confidence inspiring. Now, you're also going to get solid links, of course, the full construction, all solid, screw pin construction, and you're even going to get some low profile, as you guys can see here, right there. Yes. As you guys can see there, very low profile. They don't protrude too much in terms of that quick access there for the toolless removal on it, the end link with those spring bars. So the quick release spring bars definitely come in handy, and I like that they have been refined and they're not just kind of looking like a generic set of quick release spring bars that have been added. Also, you're going to have the beautiful beveled 3-link bracelet, screw pin construction, tapering from 20 millimeters about to 16 millimeters. You're going to have this 19.2 millimeter push button milled clasp with 6 positions of toolless micro adjustment. So very, very nice, as you guys can see. Yes. Very nice and beautifully signed. I do like the contouring they did here. Kind of reminds me of the newer Moonwatch, but look at the finish on this piece. That hairline brushing is absolutely elevated, guys. So with that said, let's actually get it on the wrist and see how it wears. Okay, as you guys can see on my 7.5-inch wrist, or 19 centimeters in circumference, wears really well. And although my wrist is on the larger side of average at 7.5 inches, you can see it's quite a tall round wrist, so it's not like it's super wide and flat and accommodating. So I do have to pay attention to things like ultimate lug to lug width there, and of course paying attention to all the proportions. It is quite thin, and honestly it doesn't feel like a 40. This feels more like, even though it is technically, depending on where you measure from, a 39.5. It definitely feels more in that kind of sweet spot. But if you guys notice, if I keep my wrist a bit too close to the camera, it's going to make the watch seem a lot larger than it actually is. So I like to keep my wrist nice and low, and then just tighten up the frame so that you guys can get still a detailed look, but just add a bit of a truer aspect ratio as to how this may lay on your own wrist. And you guys can see, very handsome. That pale pink just looks the business. And it's hard to argue with. Look at the bevels, the contrast, the beautiful satin finish. There's definitely a lot to appreciate here. That lug to lug, very, very manageable at just under 45 millimeters. Guys, you can see, you can notice so much of the bracelet when you look down at the watch. So, you know, it's not looking super oversized, which I like a whole lot. So I'm digging this one, guys. And I know it's a prototype. It's not out yet. And depending on when you watch this, it might not be, you might be able to get the deals. Guys, I have to say, I think even at full price, of course, they do have to establish themselves first quite a bit in terms of having that market find them. But I will say, in terms of the quality here, I feel like that price is quite commensurate with what you're getting. So, you know, it's not a perfect product, but it is very, very close. So with that said, let's go ahead and get this off the wrist, set up for some Lume shots, low light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. Hey, check that out. Nice bright BGW9, and of course, still quite legible thanks to the cardinal points having the dual baton indices. Now, what I like to always work in is going to be a bit of a low light transition because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourself coming out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, or just hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. So it is nice to see with these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal lighting. And guys, as you guys can see, not just the dial, I mean even the hairline brushing on the bezel, the fine bevels along the bracelet links. There's a lot to like here, guys. As long as you like the aesthetic, I'm going to say you're going to be quite pleased when it comes to the execution on this piece. Definitely quite nice. Ooh, look at that dial, the depth. They weren't kidding there. And I like that you can get a little bit of tonality and kind of color phase shifting. You know, in certain lighting, you almost can bring out some copper tones. Otherwise, it's always teetering in that kind of more pinkish hue, and then maybe even a very pale kind of silvery pink. So very, very nice. I think well chosen and executed in terms of, you know, how they were able to present this. So very, very nice, guys. But with that said, we'll get everything back on here and talk about closing thoughts. On the wrist, really classic, perfect everyday proportions, very comfortable and balanced wear. I'll say the one little thing is the folding section might be a tad short, although it aligns perfectly with the clasp, and I know some people are going to love that, but I will say as somebody with a larger hand, getting your fully opened bracelet over, sliding it over your hand is going to be a little bit more of a deliberate effort than you would get if it had a longer folding section. Still fully milled, still very highly executed, but from a design standpoint, I do feel like there is that. I mean, again, it's not perfection because it's a trade-off, because you make that longer, now you're going to have that little kink that kind of comes out, and you know, it's going to make the bracelet not wear quite as flat. So I mean, it's a give and take. Now, in terms of model variants, guys, check the site links for options and availability. Of course, depending on when you watch this, there may or may not be more or less options available. Now, in terms of comparable models, guys, these compare really well against the Monta Noble, which I own and have loved for many years, especially considering this is Nivari's kind of their whole brand's first offering. That is very impressive. Of course, there are clear Rolex Oster Perpetual vibes combined with Grand Seiko elements, which should resonate really well with the watch enthusiast market, versus some of the more casual folks out there may be less excited. I know we are going to find a lot to get excited about here when it comes to the ornate details, when it comes to being so feature rich and really packing that spec sheet. You know, of course, if they ever wanted to make a more expensive version, that an SW300 or had some nice advertised COSC like, you know, accuracy levels, that would be outstanding as well. So for me, guys, bottom line, the Nivari Eden Collection offers a Swiss luxury like level fit and finish. paired with Grand Seiko-like fine details, even inside or outside of the Sakura dial variants. The handset detailing is really quite impressive when you think about the bevels, the multiple finishes. Yeah, I mean, and then you add to that, right? So you get the handset detailing, which is very impressive, and then you kind of add to that the well-executed toolless micro adjust clasp, all being assembled under German-made quality control. And you really have something quite special that sounds, that really, I should say, stands out even in a very competitive market. So I think this brand is one to keep an eye on. I know I'm going to be sad to send this review model on to the next reviewer, but I hope to get my hands on a full production unit eventually so that I can do a follow-up and just kind of let you know how everything worked out. So with that said, let me know what you think down in the comments below. If you like the video, please hit like, and if you're already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.